आपको हमारी आवाज सुनाई दे रही है ना?
जी जी, सब ठीक है। एक मिनट।
और मेरा आवाज भी सुनाई दे रहे हैं?
जी जी, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल ठीक है सर।
आपको हमारी आवाज सुनाई दे रही है?
जी।
सब ठीक है। और मेरा आवाज भी सुनाई?
नमस्कार। गुड
नमस्ते।
मॉर्निंग। Welcome to the Eastern Regional Young Writers Meet organized by Sahitya Academy under its Webline Literature Series. Today we have with us Professor Uday Narayan Singh, a multilingual writer and distinguished Indian scholar, to inaugurate this meet. The inaugural session is being chaired by Sri Gaur Haridas, eminent Oriya writer and the convener, Eastern Regional Board of the Sahitya Academy. At beginning, I want to express apologize from our secretary, Ms. Pallavi Prasant Holkar, who could not able to join this meeting for some other urgency. Now, welcoming all our online audience, I request them to share the link of this program among with their literary circle and social web groups for the broader reach of this fruitful program. Friends, now may I request Professor Uday Narayan Singh ji for his inaugural address. Sir, please.
Thank you, Devesh ji. Uh, I'm so happy to be part of this event, and we are going to talk about the creative writing and the future of creative writing and creative writing in the future, all of these issues. And I think the most important point about creative writing is that we need to think beyond categories, frames, and isms. A lot of people and a lot of writers are always worried about the isms within category of which they have to write. I don't think we need to really worry about all these theories. The most important thing is that think out of box, think out of frame. That's the thing I would say. And my role here is a dual role. I'm looking at the whole phenomenon of creative writing, both as a creative writer, poet, and playwright, and also as a linguist, or grammarian. Now, my suggestion would be to think outside grammar. So that is important thing here because there have been many people in the Indian tradition, starting from Bhartrihari, who have been great grammarians and great poets both. But as I said, that there are many categories which grammar forces us to be within. Uh, you have all known about the noun, the verb, the adjective, the adverb. These are all important categories. But I think the nouns try to dominate us. All the isms and all the frames, they somehow try to dominate us. So we need to really shake off and shake this off. But we need to look beyond the window because if you look at the adverbs, these are given by our tradition, our social condition, our cultural context. All these actually force us to think only in a limited kind of direction. But how can we actually unlimit ourselves? That's the biggest issue here. Look at the adjectives, for instance. We often fight or rush to adjectives. How would I, as a poet, like to be described? My critic, how should he describe myself? Now, this is not something which is so important for a creative writer. Think beyond it. Or, for instance, pronouns. Pronouns are constrained by yours and mine. What is my literature? What is your literature? This becomes a big debate. Now, in the eastern region, we have noticed for last experience of 2,000 years, there have been lot of overlap. lot of enmeshing, lot of synthesis, which is very common. Because for our Charya poems, all of us claim Maithili, Bangla, Odia, Asamiya, everybody says that it is my poem. Similarly, Vidyapati is somebody who is revered by everybody. The Bengali scholars, the Odia scholars, the Assamese scholars, the Maithilis, everybody actually reveres them. So, somebody like Bhima Bhoi, a medieval poet of Odisha, so these are all gems in our eastern region. And I think they all teach us something which is very important, and I call it a manifesto of verbs. So, if you look at the manifesto of verbs, I would say that the central position of a sentence is occupied by a verb, as you all know. You can eliminate a subject, you can eliminate an object, but you can't eliminate a verb without which there cannot be a sentence. So, verb is the center at the center of creativity. And I would only give to my young writer friends a few verbs. What exactly we should do now? The first thing that I would say is we should shift. The first verb I would like to invoke is shift. What do you shift? Shift your perspective, shift your language, shift your medium, shift from self, that is the other the self. So basically, I'm asking you to go from certainty to curiosity. You cannot be so certain about everything today in today's world. So better be curious about what's happening. From imitation of other great writers to voice. Voice your own style, voice your own concern, voice your own language. From isolation to dialogue. So great poets, if you notice, from Rabindranath Tagore to Jivanananda Das or Rajkamal Chaudhary, they not only shifted just style, but they also shifted the worldview. So how should you prepare yourself to shift? First of all, cognitive flexibility, emotional mobility, and ability to see the familiar as strange. Can you find out something strange in your familiar scenario? Or can you actually make a friend with your strange? So if you look at this way, then first verb I would say is the shift. Second verb I would say you should really follow as a principle is adopt. Adopt traditions, adopt techniques, adopt disciplines, adopt your region. You are not just belonging to only Assam or Odisha or Bengal or Mithila. In a whole region, I would say even greater region, that is whole India, but at least the entire eastern region, entire Purvanchal, entire Purvadesh, uh, its language, its cultures, its challenges, its trends, all of them are to be adopted. See, a poet or a writer is not born in a vacuum. Each innovator digs deep, digs into life, adopts silence as a practice. See, words are as important as between the words. The space between the words is equally important. Adopt reading as a ritual. In one of my recent interviews, I told in Maithili, Betahasha padhu. You have to read a lot. And I would even say read vigorously, read furiously. Also adopt revision as devotion. You need to revise your own writing. I have noticed that the play Tapati by Rabindranath Tagore, he revised it 13 times. So very interesting. If you look at the Jadavpur University window that they have created for Tagore text comparative window, you'll find 13 different editions of the same play. So prepare yourself for a rigorous reading, then study the craft. If you are a poet, meter, image, structure, sound, all of this you need to study very carefully. Tools and techniques exist for fiction. Offer mentorship to the new generation. You need to be mentor for the new poets, budding poets now. Then third thing is resist. Third verb is resist. Resist haste. Don't be in a hurry to corner a glory or get an award. Resist noise, resist performative creativity. You see, in an age of algorithm and in that kind of reward system, you have to resist, you show resistance with an artistic dignity. Resist writing only for applause, you know. खाली ताली के लिए लिखना है ऐसा नहीं है. Some people may not like your writing, some people may criticize you. Accept the criticism, ready to be accepting the criticism. So resist the pressure to constantly produce. You cannot write so much. There is a limit to what you can write. So I think you should prepare yourself for long periods of obscurity, series of misunderstandings. Some people will misunderstand you, but don't worry about it. And a season of internal doubt. You may have some doubts from within, but you have to get out of that doubt. So, but to resist that temptation of being demoralized because of the doubt. Fourth verb that I would say you should adopt is listen. Please listen to others. Listen to silence. Listen to animals. Listen to nature. Listen to marginalized voices. There are many, many people around us who are on the margin. Poetry begins only when you are willing to listen. So your empathy, your compassion, your deep observation, your patience, all this is very important. Fifth verb I will say is endure. Artistic life is less about breakthrough, more about continuity. You have to endure rejection, endure reinvention, endure your own evolution. You remember that you have to play a long innings with emotional stamina. And also remember that you are always learning something or the other. You're a lifelong apprentice in literature. Sixth verb that I will talk about, I will only give you seven verbs. Okay. Sixth verb I will talk about is adapt. See, technology changes, poetry mutates, poetry changes. There was a point of time when young generation people came in 1950s, 60s. We had the hungry generation, we had the angry generation, we had the Akavitavad, we had the Navchetnabad, we have many, many of these isms that came up. Like isms, technology also changes, forms mutate, attention spans fracture. Why am I saying attention spans fracture? Is that the days of writing Mahakavya, there was a day, there was a time when a lot of people wrote Mahakavya. Today, it is very difficult to retain the attention span of readers for that long. So, therefore, on the contrary to Mahakavya, now you have Insta poetry. On the Instagram, you have poetry of 5 lines, 10 lines, 6 lines, and fantastic poetry. I'm not saying that people have not tried earlier. If you look at Tagore and look at his book called Spulinga, then he has those 4 lines, fantastic 4 lines. So adopt, remember that adopt does not mean surrender. You have right to do whatever you want to do with an experiment, but it is survival with integrity. So adopt to new media with losing depth, adapt form to urgency, adopt voice to audience without diluting the truth. What should you do then? Prepare yourself for cross-disciplinary literacy. Be comfortable with all the latest tools, and you must have resilience in changing cultural climates. Cultural climates cannot remain constant, it will change. So be remain there. And I think the last verb that I will ask you to uh, try out is imagine. Don't escape. Face with morality. Understand and imagine. What should you imagine? Please imagine the future. Imagine alternative history. Whatever history people have taught you in schools, don't think that is the only history. There are many, many other histories parallelly happening at the same time. So remember the alternative histories that remember there are alternatives to history. Imagine tenderness in very harsh landscape. So you must bring water in the desert. You must bring tranquility in huge storm. So remember that creativity is only a rehearsal to reach the possible worlds. So prepare yourself for intellectual bravery and ethical responsibility. In other words, let me summarize what I would say you should do as a young creative writer of the Eastern region. Prepare yourself for complexity, ambiguity, solitude, dialogue, transformation, responsibility, and some people will say what you're writing is irrelevant. Never mind. This kind of criticism still continue. The future of poetry, future of writing in our region must be both rooted and fluid at the same time, both disciplined and a revolt against the grammar. I would say only this, and I would wish you grand success in today's reading. And I think you have an opportunity to present yourself to your listeners, to your readers, and readers across languages. I'm sure people will love to hear what writing is happening, what kind of writing is happening in those six, seven different languages of the Eastern region. Thank you, Dr. Devesh, for giving us the opportunity. Also grateful to the Secretary, Pallavi ma'am, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful thoughts and speech. Friends, now may I request Sri Gaur Haridas ji to say a few words from the chair. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Devesh ji, Professor Uday Narayan Singh ji, Khetrivas Babu, and the participants of this web series of literary discussion and the lovers of literature. I, on behalf of the Eastern Regional Board, extend a hearty welcome to all of you. Eastern Regional Board is the most illustrious board of Sahitya Academy. Not only this board takes care of 8 languages, this board also includes the Bangla and Rabindranath Tagore language of Rabindranath Tagore, who had brought a Nobel Prize in literature. I was listening to Professor Uday Narayan Singh. He has suggested very interesting tips to the young writers: read, resist, revise, listen, endure, adapt, imagine, and most importantly, get out of this limited, fixed box. It is a popular notion in India that only experienced people, only senior writers are capable of producing excellent works. But I don't subscribe to this idea. Probably this was the notion for which, when Juba Puraskar of Sahitya Academy, this proposal was mooted, this proposal was suggested. Some senior members had suggested the then President Sunil Gangopadhyay to raise the age bar from 35 to 40. Some people suggested, some people were of opinion that how can a young boy of 35 or a young girl of 35 can produce any substantial work. But Sunil Gangopadhyay stood his position and he tried to persuade and convince. And he has given some examples which also spoke a lot of things that young boys and girls were also capable of producing good work. I think he had suggested, he had given some examples I'm giving two or three. He had said that Alexander the Great had already earned this title before he reached 35. Then Martin Luther King, who is famous for his speech, I Have a Dream, when he delivered this epoch making speech in United States of America, he was not even 35, he was only 30. And by 35, he had already won Nobel Prize. Swami Vivekananda, who lived only for 39 years, but before that, he had already become famous, and we all know about his Chicago speech at the International Seminar of Religion. Shankaracharya, he had lived for 32 years only, but by that time, he had traveled throughout India not once, twice, more than thrice, and set up these five illustrious monasteries. He had also written commentaries on Vedanta, Upanishad, Brahma Bhashya, Brahma Sutra, and lot of things. French poet Rimbaud, whom our young friends are quite familiar with, he lived for only 32 years, but he written his important work before he reached 25. And Keats, John Keats, he lived for only 30 years, and Shelley up that age. There are quite few examples from Odisha. Professor Singh was quoting 19th century poet Bhima Bhoi, who was born in 1850. He was already famous. And Manod Da, Sitaka Matra, that so several examples from all Indian languages, not only from my Odia language or English. So my point is to say, I request my young friends to have self-confidence that young people also are capable of doing very important works. So this Sahitya Academy, when it came out with Juba Puraskar, ever since Juba Puraskar was established, there has been phenomenal change, perceptible change in literary scenario. I am watching more than 100 titles coming out each year in my language only. And I think that will also the same case in Hindi, Bangla, and other languages. But I would quote Professor Singh, but resist this instant fame and this tali or clap, because you have to revise, you have to read a lot. There are certain things we are writing about. We are writing about hunger, anger, love, solitude, this thing. But there have been several poems, several stories, novels written, had already been written on this subject. How we are going to approach these subjects in a new perspective. It is not the length, it is not the quantity, it is the quality that determines the value of your writings. While welcoming all the participants, I was looking at the card. There is a very interesting subject. I would thank Deveshji that the impact of artificial intelligence in the field of literature. Literature is a subject of heart, is also a subject of mind. How young writers are going to face this challenge. That's a very interesting subject. I'm also looking forward to listen to their deliberation. So with these few words, I welcome them, all of the participants once again. I thank Professor Udanan Singh for inaugurating this seminar. I think we've not got a more illustrious, more eminent scholar, author than Professor Singh. I also thank Sahitya Academy, our particularly Dr. Deveshji, for giving me this opportunity to address to my young friends and the inaugural session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your informative speech. As we know, India's strength lies in its diversity across languages, religions, and cultures, and youth play a key role in protecting that harmony. Today's program is going to witness these words. Friends, today's meet have three different sessions, which include multilingual poetry readings, multilingual short story readings, and a discussion on the topic impact of AI on literature. Hope you all will enjoy the readings and discussions as per our program schedule. With this belief, I extend my gratitude to our chief guest, Professor Udayanaran Singh ji, and the chairperson, Sri Gaur Hari Das ji, for their presence and views expressed by them. And of course, a big hand of applause for audience also. Thank you very much. Now this session ends here. Thanks again.
Thank you.